Okay, we have two stories for you today, and we're going to be talking about proposed new sentencing guidelines for child predators who want to have sex with children. And we're also going to be talking about another Second Amendment loss in Washington. Big shocker. Stay tuned. Okay, welcome back to Behind the Wire on Rebel Radio. I'm your host, Robert Burwell. I'm president of Washington 3%. And we like to concentrate here on mostly Washington stuff, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. We have two stories. The first one is the Washington State Sentencing Guidelines Commission voted to recommend lighter sentencing options for adults caught in sex crime sting operations in Washington State. These are cases where adults, usually men, take active steps to meet who they think are children for sex. The commission voted 7-2 to urge lawmakers to create alternatives to incarceration. Yes, we don't want to put them in prison. We want alternatives to that. According to the Washington State Sentencing Guidelines Commission, that's what they voted for, 7-2. So they want alternatives to incarceration for so-called offenses with no identifiable victim. So when they're talking about no identifiable victim, well, I'll get into that in a minute. That category includes internet sting operations where the child is actually an undercover detective. 3 on the commission chose to abstain. So, yeah. So those 3 are cowards. They didn't want to take a side. 2 voted on the side of common sense, and the other 7 are just complete morons and should be removed from the State Sentencing Guidelines Commission. So basically what we're talking about here, what they're saying is these cases they're talking about are where you have basically the police set up a sting operation, right? They have a detective, usually a detective, pose online as, like, say, a 13-year-old girl. They go into these chat rooms where these pedophiles like to hang out, these young adults chat rooms, and they wait for somebody to hit on them. And when that individual does, the detective, posing as, say, the 13-year-old girl, makes conversation, flirts, and is receptive to the advances that the individual pervert is making. They then try to schedule a meetup, telling the pervert that their parents aren't home or whatever, and they schedule a meetup with this individual. And then the individual shows up and is promptly arrested by the police. Now, the reason they're trying to say that that this is a crime with no identifiable victim is because it's not really a 13-year-old child. It's a detective. But, you're talking a severe technicality there because, this individual thinks that he's talking to, like, say, a 13-year-old girl. He is actively trying to have sex with a child. Whether or not the person is actually a child is inconsequential because he thinks it is. The individual thinks that it's a child, and they're actively trying to have sex with a child. Okay? But they're saying that since it wasn't actually a child, there's no victim, and therefore they should get no prison time. No, they don't want them to have incarceration. They should come up. They want the state Senate and House to come up with alternate means of punishment other than incarceration. What kind of things are they talking about? Just put them on probation so they can go out there and do it again and just keep doing it? Or are we going to be even more ridiculous and just take their phone away for a month so they can't go online and try to hit on little girls? I mean, this is sheer stupidity. These people need to be removed from the Sentencing Commission. There is no reason at all for this kind of a proposal. I mean, these people, they are actively trying to lure a child to have sex with them, which is against the law. And there are laws against luring a child, okay? So even if you're trying to say there wasn't an identifiable victim, they were trying to lure a child for sex. It just didn't happen to be a child like they thought it was. Their ass needs to go, at minimum, to prison. At minimum. And since this is one of my hot button issues, I am trying very, very hard right now to stay calm, not swear too much, because this is asinine. But, you know, my personal opinion, anybody who gets caught doing this stuff should not only go to prison, they should never get out again. Ever. Because, you know, vast majority of psychologists will tell you, you cannot change a pedophile. They are attracted to children. They will always be attracted to children. And you can't fix that. You can't. That's the one thing they say you can't fix. At least that's what they told me in 2002 when I went to psychology courses and got my degree. So, and, you know, all the psychologists I've ever talked to will tell you the same thing. These people cannot be cured. Period. They will reoffend because they're attracted to children, and you can't change that. That is a base part of their personality. That's what they're attracted to. Just like you can't change a gay man, back to being straight. That's in their deep psyche. That's in their makeup. That's the way they are. You cannot change them to all of a sudden like women. Same thing with a pedophile. You can't change them to quit liking kids and like adults. You're not gonna. It's a fact. They can't be cured. So they need to go to prison forever as far as I'm concerned. And actually, if I had my way, they'd be taking a dirt nap. You know, because they can't be cured. They're like a vicious animal, needs to be put down, because as long as they're out, they will continually try to hurt children. And this stupidity that this commission is recommending to our state Senate and our state House, finding alternatives. What kind of alternatives? Treatment that we know is not going to work, that we know is impossible. I mean, just like conversion therapy never worked on gay individuals, there is no therapy that'll work on a pedophile. There isn't. That's a fact. So this is completely ridiculous. These people need to be thrown off of the commission who voted for this. It's abhorrent. It's disgusting that this is even being thought about being done. Now, luckily, this isn't being proposed in the House and Senate yet. It actually was proposed for different sentencing guidelines, I believe, last session, but they didn't act on it. But these people are now recommending to the Senate and the House that they lower the punishment for these people who are caught in stings. And that should not be allowed to happen. So, if you live in Washington State, contact your senator and your representative. For God's sake, contact them and tell them this is unacceptable. These people need to be in prison where they belong, where they cannot harm children. Like, as the Democrats always like to say, it's for the children. This really is for the children, okay? Because if you let these people out, if you don't even put them in jail, they're going to, you know, they have no consequences. They're going to continue to look for a child to have sex with until they actually do. And they're going to scar some child for life. And that's unacceptable. I mean, of all things, we should be protecting our children. These people would rather protect pedophiles than children. That's how twisted these people are. And, you know, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it like I always do. This is what happens when you vote for Democrats. You know why? Because Democrats appoint these bleeding heart idiots who treat criminals like victims to these kind of commissions. And they're the ones, you know, recommending policy. You know, oh, no, we don't want to put these people in jail. Who cares if they're going to go right back out and probably rape a child this time? No, we can't put them in jail for wanting to have sex with children. As long as they don't do it, that's okay. No, I'm sorry. They tried to have sex with a child. Their ass needs to go to jail forever. Period. They should be out. So, again, you get what you vote for. You vote for Democrats. These are the kind of people they appoint. And these are the kind of suggestions and actual laws that get passed because of the way you vote. Voting has consequences. Contact your senator or your representative in Washington and tell them Do not even consider this stupidity. These people belong in jail. Just blow up their freaking inboxes, because that's the only way we're going to stop this stupidity. So, that's that subject. Take a minute. Lower my blood pressure. Right. Calm down. I did much better than my first attempt at recording this. I didn't cuss. At least I don't think I cussed. At least I didn't cuss as much anyways. But, so, our second subject. We, in Washington State, have once again suffered another Second Amendment loss in a Washington State court. No kidding. Totally shocked. I mean, color me surprised, right? Of course we're going to lose in Washington court. Washington courts don't follow the law. They don't follow the Constitution. Okay? They follow these laws that violate the Constitution. They uphold these laws that violate the Constitution, but they don't follow the Constitution of the federal Constitution or the state Constitution. They follow neither. Right? So these laws are illegal, but they're ruling this stuff is legal again. So it's another loss for us here in Washington. And we're going to keep losing as long as we're fighting these in Washington. We need to, just keep going up the steps. Eventually we'll get to the Supreme Court and get this stupidity overturned. It'd just be nice if Supreme Court would get off their ass and actually work on Second Amendment cases. Really would. There's tons of them out there. They just need to get off their ass and protect our rights. Our rights are more important than a lot of the cases that they're deciding. Okay? Our individual rights as Americans, especially the Second Amendment. That's just, it's second for a reason, right? The most important is the First Amendment, freedom of speech. Second most important is the right to keep and bear arms. Yet for some reason, on Supreme Court docket, it always is lower than other cases that don't have near the impact on our God-given rights that these unlawful gun control laws do. So, Supreme Court, get off your ass, do your job. Anyways, back to our latest loss here in Washington State. So, Washington gun control advocates are celebrating a win after the state's ban on so-called assault weapons was again upheld in court. A Thurston County Superior Court judge, go figure, right? Thurston County Superior Court judge this month upheld a 2023 state law that bars the sale, manufacture, distribution, and import of assault weapons. The law defines that term to cover a range of firearms, including certain semi-automatic weapons. So yeah, their idea of assault weapons is the vast majority of semi-automatic rifles. I mean, if you go on their little list of all the things that they consider an assault weapon, is like, don't be surprised if your favorite semi-automatic hunting rifle is on the list as an assault weapon for simply being semi-automatic. That's how broad and stupid this law is. Okay? But we're going to continue. So, the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, also known as the Useful Idiots for Disarming the Public and Giving the Government Total Control. The Alliance for Gun Responsibility, dang, I got a frog in my throat, said in a November 19th news release that the ruling reasserts the state's authority to protect public safety by restricting military-style assault weapons. Well, that sentence is just totally full of lies and misinformation, but we'll go ahead and continue, and I'll address that later. It's the third time that attempts to upend the law were dismissed. The state's ban is still wholly intact, according to the Useful Idiot Coalition, better known as the Alliance for Gun Responsibility. So, yeah, basically, yeah, it has been upheld 3 times. This is something I'm not going to skip. I'll cover that in just a second, though. The challenge was from Moses Lake firearms dealer Guardian Arms, which filed suit against the state over claims that the law violated the state constitution's protections on the right to bear arms. So, basically, this is where the 3-time loser thing comes in on challenging the assault weapons ban. The reason we are 3-time losers is because all 3 of these cases have eventually ended up in Thurston County. Okay, we had one case that was actually decided, and it wasn't assault, it was a magazine ban. It was decided in is that Clark County down there in Vancouver? I think so. Decided in Clark County, and it was immediately overturned by the state Supreme Court. And so it was found legal in the state Supreme Court, but that's in Thurston County. And also the other cases have been done in Thurston County. And what's so funny about this one is this case was actually filed in Grant County out of Moses Lake. And the state knew they could not win in a state that, in a county that has judges who follow the actual Constitution. So they illegally moved the case out of Grant County to Thurston County so that they could win. So we have 3 wins in Thurston County, right? 3 wins in Thurston County because the Democrats do what Democrats do. They judge shop. They know in Thurston County they have these liberal judges who don't care about the Constitution, the federal Constitution nor the state Constitution, and they just rubber stamp anything the corrupt and illegal legislature in the state passes when it comes to guns. That is specifically why they judge shopped. They pulled that case out of Grant County and moved it to Thurston County because they knew they would not win in Grant County. They had to get a rubber stamp judge, who this judge in Pierce County, and we're going to name her in a few minutes, to say, oh yeah, you can totally do this. It's constitutional. And it's not. And we'll get into that a little later. So anyways, yeah, it's military style assault weapons. We'll talk about that a little bit later too. So let's see. Yeah, get back to the article. Here we go. So according to the plaintiffs who were suing against the case, we think this decision needs to be appealed because the words of the Washington State Constitution, which provide that the right to bear arms shall not be impaired, must mean something, Waits wrote. The court's decision and its interpretation of some case law stand for the proposition that the fundamental right to bear arms is merely a privilege suspect to reasonable regulation by the legislature. And he is 100% right. This ruling is blatantly unconstitutional. He's just talking about the state constitution, not even talking about federal constitution, because our state constitution says that the right to bear arms shall not be impaired. Okay. So number one, it's a right. It is not a privilege, okay? The reason they called it the right to bear arms in our state constitution, because it is a God-given right. God-given right means it's off hands for the government. They can't touch it. It's a right. You cannot touch it. You cannot take it away. You cannot modify it. It is a basic human right that you were given to by being born as a human being and by the grace of God. These are your rights, and the government cannot touch them, okay? And when they say it cannot be impaired, that means you cannot do anything to restrict the ability to exercise that right. Okay? The government can do nothing to restrict your ability to exercise your inherent right to keep and bear arms. Okay? Now, and what they're saying here is that, that means something. That's what it meant when it was written down and put in our state constitution. And now the state wants to treat it like it's just a privilege that they can regulate however they want. No, there's a difference between rights and privileges. A right is something that's God-given to you by birth. It's something the government cannot touch. A privilege is something that you're allowed to do by the government as long as you follow their rules, such as driving a car on the highways in the state. Now, you can drive a car on your property all you want, right? But if you want to drive on our state highways, you have to take a test. You have to buy tabs. You have to do all these things because it's a privilege. It's something they're allowing you to do. They're allowing you to operate a dangerous motor vehicle on state highways that are the responsibility and under the control of the state. So they can regulate that privilege. Your right to bear arms is a right. It cannot be regulated, okay? And that's exactly what they meant when they wrote our state constitution. This is hands off. You can't touch it. It's a right. It is not a privilege. But they're treating it like a privilege. This judge and the prosecution, in this case, they treated it like a privilege. And that violates the state constitution and the federal constitution for that matter. Let's continue with the article, though. The Alliance for Gun Responsibility, the Useful Idiots, assisted in passing the 2023 law. It worked with Seattle-based Pacifica Law Group to intervene in the case to defend Substitute House Bill 1240, which is the assault weapons ban, against legal challenge. At the November 14th Superior. At the November 14th hearing, Superior Court Judge Christine Schaller, that's her name, that's the one they judge shopped, Judge Christine Schaller issued a ruling from the bench granting summary judgment to the state and the alliance, ending the case in the trial court, Pacifica Law Group said in a news release on November 18th. So she upheld the state law, which is blatantly unconstitutional. Trial and appellate lawyer Zach Pekelis, a litigation partner at Pacifica Law Group, called the decision another crucial win for common sense gun violence prevention in the state. He said via email November 19th that assault weapons aren't safeguarded by the state constitution because law-abiding citizens don't typically use them for self-defense. So, Zachy boy, where exactly does it say that to exercise your Second Amendment right, you can only use a weapon that is commonly used for self-defense? Where does it say that? It has to be something that's commonly used for self-defense. Where in the federal or state constitution does it say that? It doesn't say that nowhere. You are so full of shit. It's ridiculous. Okay? You're trying to modify the common use clause from the Bruin decision by the Supreme Court of the United States. But in the Bruin decision, the common use clause specifically states, I'm going to read it here, specifically states, you cannot ban firearms that are in common use for lawful purposes. It doesn't say common use for self-defense. It says common use for lawful purposes. So as long as you are not using it to do something unlawful, like go around and murder people, or hold up a store, or anything else, if it's in common use for lawful purposes, you can have it. There's nothing that says it has to be commonly used for self-defense. So you're full of shit, you're twisting words, and this is exactly what the left does to violate our gun rights, is they just make up the rules as they go along. They take a clause and they add to it to support their position. And these rubber stamp judges, this, what was her name? Christine something or other. These rubber stamp judges go in there and say, oh, yep, that's constitutional. It's not. The Bruin decision specifically makes this unconstitutional. And another thing about the common use clause that makes this decision unconstitutional, okay, is the fact that it says common use. A weapon that's in common use. The AR-15, which is the most maligned of supposed assault rifles, and we'll get into that in a minute, but the AR-15 is the most popular rifle in the United States. There are more of these owned by people than any other rifle out there, period. There are more AR-15s than any other rifle platform in the United States. Okay? That tells me it's commonly used. It's commonly used, right? It's common. The most popular sporting rifle in the United States is common. Okay? So again, according to the Bruin decision, it's in common use for lawful purposes. You can't ban it. But, you know, once again, Washington State just ignores the Constitution, ignores the Bruin decision that's passed down by the United States Supreme Court, and just passes whatever laws they want, justifying it, and actually twisting the words of the Supreme Court and adding to it to try to support their position. And it's a total load of bullshit. It's a lie. And Mr. Zach Pekelis, I'm calling you out. You're full of shit. There's nothing that says it has to be commonly used for self-defense. It just says it has to be in common use for lawful purposes. There are other lawful purposes besides self-defense. Okay? So, you're a shyster, and the judge is corrupt. Because the law is the law. And no matter how much you guys twist it and justify it by winning these in-house cases with your hand-picked judges, it doesn't make it right. It's still an illegal law, and you're out here celebrating and trying to justify it by lying to people who don't know what the actual laws and the rulings are. They buy this stuff and think it's justified. It's not. You know it's not. And you know if it ever gets to Supreme Court, you're going to lose. We just need Supreme Court to get off their ass. So anyways, I'm going to continue. Rather, Zachy Boy said these firearms are devised for military combat. Again, you're full of shit, Zach. They're not designed for military combat. You know it. I know it. Anybody who's ever owned firearms knows it. Okay? And I'll address that in a few minutes at the end of this. But you're full of shit again. Is there anything, Zach, that you actually say that's true? I'm just curious. Is there anything you say that's true? Because what I'm reading here, nothing you say is true. But the weak-minded among us will read this article and believe it. But you know you're lying. You know you're lying. Anyways, he said the law in question doesn't infringe on the right to self-defense. Yeah, it does. It does. You have a right to self-defense. And according to the Supreme Court of the United States, any weapon that is in common use for lawful purposes can be used for self-defense. And you're infringing on my right to use a weapon of superior firepower to defend myself against multiple attackers. You just want me to defend myself with a freaking BB gun, right? I mean, if you had your way, we wouldn't be able to defend ourselves with a gun, period. So yes, it does affect my ability to defend myself. It does. I have an AR-15. I should be able to use it to defend myself, period. There's nothing that says that I have to have only certain type of guns to defend myself. I can defend myself with any type of weapon that I have. And you are, by saying that I can't own this, you're saying I can't use it to defend myself. And it's a lawfully owned weapon. It is in common use, so it is legal to use for lawful purposes in the United States, according to the Supreme Court. So you are, by passing this law, affecting my right to self-defense. Anyways, continuing. And he also says, the legislature correctly concluded that the law will save lives. We're going to get into the numbers on this. Including by preventing would-be mass shooters from purchasing their weapons of choice. Okay, we also have laws that are in place to prevent violent, crazy people from purchasing these weapons. It's called background checks. We all have to do it. Okay, granted, you're not going to catch the people who haven't done nothing yet, but the vast majority of the bad people can't get them legally. But again, that's not hard. They can just, they can get them illegally. So laws never stop the criminal. No laws ever stop the criminal. That's just the way the world works there, Zach. So as usual, you are full of crap. And I'm just going to continue to read the stupid stuff that you're putting in here, though. Zach said, research indicates that if the federal prohibition on assault weapons had stayed in place in the United States from 2005 to 2019, instead of expiring in 2004, nearly 1,500 injuries or deaths in 30 mass shootings would have been prevented. So it's not even 1,500 deaths from assault weapons in a 15-year span. It's 1,500 people have been injured or killed by assault weapons in the entire United States in 15 years. It's 1,500 people in 15 years. So, now, this one, we're not going to wait. We're going to go into the numbers on this. Okay? So, according to Zachy Boy here, if we would have kept assault weapons banned, so-called assault weapons banned, we would have saved 1,500 people from being killed or injured over a 15-year period. So, 15 years, 1,500 people, that is, let's see, 15 years, 1,500 people, that is 100 people annually nationwide over this 15-year span. There's 100 people on average annually nationwide that are injured or killed by assault weapons. In the whole entire country of 340.1 million people over a 15-year period, 100 people a year were injured or killed by assault weapons. Now that's that's the entire nation, okay? That's 50 states. So this is a Washington law. So the lives that are going to be saved by this law in Washington, if you average it out, there's 50 states, 100 people a year get injured or killed. Now, there are no numbers for how many people have actually been injured or killed by assault weapons in Washington state. They don't publish that because they know that it is virtually zero, okay? But just say, okay, 100 people a year, 50 states, that's 2 people per state. You know, just average out 2 people per state get injured or killed by an assault weapon every year. So that would be 2 deaths or injuries in Washington state, which has a population of 8 million people. So we have 8 million people in Washington state right now. If 2 people get hurt or killed by a so-called assault weapon in Washington state, that would be one out of every 4 million people are hurt or injured by assault weapons in Washington state each year. Now, again, we don't have the actual numbers because they won't publish that, because I know it's far less than that. Washington hasn't had hardly any deaths associated with assault weapons. So we're just doing it on a national average. National average, that would give us 2 people a year. We have 8 million people. That means 1 in every 4 million people in our state are injured or killed by an assault weapon each year. 1 in 4 million. That sounds like a really big problem that we need to frickin' address, doesn't it? 1 in 4 million people might get hurt or killed by an assault weapon, a supposed assault weapon in Washington state each year. Yeah, that's a real big problem. 1 in 4 million. Boy, this law is going to save a lot of lives, isn't it? Isn't it? And it's only at the cost of violating the rights of 8 million people in our state to save 1 out of every 4 million, or 2 people from being hurt or killed each year in Washington by so-called assault weapons. We're going to deny 8 million people their God-given right to self-defense that's been upheld by the Supreme Court of the United States, that says that you can own a weapon that's in common use for lawful purposes in the state. They are violating that to possibly save 1 injury or death in every 4 million people in this state. Again, violating the rights of 8 million people to possibly save 2 people from being hurt or killed each year. That math don't math. You can make everybody else in this state suffer, take their right to defend themselves away, take their right away to their weapon of choice, which is totally legal, to save maybe 2 people. Now let's run some other numbers just for shits and giggles. So fentanyl. Currently, fentanyl is illegal to sell in Washington state, but because of the liberal Democrat stupidity that we have in this state, you can have it for your own personal use and do it on the street. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Perfectly okay. Just as long as you don't sell it, it's perfectly okay to have and use in Washington state. Again, Washington state, we are a state of 8 million people. In Washington state in 2023, 2,600 people in our state died from fentanyl overdoses in Washington state that year. 2023, 2,600 people. That is 1 in every 3,076 people died in 2023 from fentanyl overdoses, which Washington state allows people to possess and use. They just can't sell it. They can't have it in large quantities, but they can possess it and use it. And 1 out of every 3,076 people die, and yet it's legal. But guns, which could possibly kill 1 in every 4 million people in Washington state, that's bad. We need to do something about it because it's such a terrible thing. But fentanyl, that kills 1 in every 3,076 people, that's okay. Are you seeing the stupidity in this? Are you seeing why this shouldn't even be a damn issue? It's completely ridiculous. I got more numbers for you. Car deaths in Washington State, right? Automobiles. We all drive them. We all use them. Perfectly legal to use in the United States and in Washington State. In 2023, well, not in 2023, the last few years, we have averaged in Washington State between 730 and 810 deaths in automobile accidents every year. Okay, between 730 and 810. So that is roughly 770 people every year are killed in automobile accidents in Washington State. That's 1 in every 10,389 people. Okay, not near as bad as fentanyl. That's 3 times worse. But still, that's not good numbers. 1 in 10,000 is your odds of getting killed each year in a car accident in Washington State. But again, it's not a problem. It's perfectly fine. It's okay. We don't need to do nothing about cars, right? Because we all need cars, right? So, it's the end of the world, and we have to get rid of scary black rifles, because 1 in 4 million people die each year in Washington from the black scary rifles. 1 in 4 million. But, hey, 1 in 10,389 people die every year from car accidents. Yeah, not a big deal. It's okay. It's acceptable. And 1 in every 3,076 people dies from fentanyl every year. That's okay too. We don't need to make it illegal to possess or use. That's perfectly fine. It's just 1 in every 3,000 people. That's okay. But 1 in every 4 million, ooh, we got to outlaw these god-awful evil weapons from hell. This is stupid. If people really cared about human life, if the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, these freaking useful idiots, would even look at numbers, if they actually went by facts and data, they would see that the whole gun issue is not even an issue compared to other things we have going on in this state, things that we should be tackling. And especially since your right to use drugs is not constitutional. Your right to drive a car is not constitutional. Your right to own a firearm is constitutional, but they're going after that. And it's a non-issue compared to the other things we have going on in this state. That is how stupid this legislature is. That is how stupid the voters in this state are that think it's a big deal because their TV tells them all the time, oh, guns are scary, they hurt people bad, guns bad. Fentanyl's okay. I mean, you see it every day. You drive by them on the street looking like zombies. Probably driven past dead people from fentanyl and you didn't even know it because they're passed out on the sidewalk. But you just, blinders on, keep driving. It's not a problem. But 1 person in 4 million might get hurt or killed by an assault weapon. We got to get rid of them all. It makes no sense. It's stupid. And the real reason that the government is using these useful idiots to push this kind of stuff and pass it through is not because they want to protect human life. If they want to protect human life, they would go after the drugs. They'd really make that illegal and really stop the fentanyl epidemic that we have in the United States. But here in Washington, we make it legal to use, right? We don't care. It's not about saving lives. Going after firearms in Washington State is not about saving lives. It's about taking away our ability to defend ourselves from a corrupt, abusive government, which is what we have in Washington State, and that is what the initial reason for the Second Amendment was for. That is why it's in the Constitution. It's not for hunting. It's not for even protection. It's for protecting ourselves, not from criminals, but from a corrupt, abusive government that violates our rights and treats us like servants. And that's what's going on here in Washington. That's why they're going after the gun laws. That's why they're passing these gun laws. That's why they're going after our guns. It has nothing to do with human life. It has nothing to do with public safety. Because again, if public safety was a big issue, they'd be working on this other stuff. Not something that might possibly kill 1 person out of every 4 million a year. 2 people in the state a year could be hurt or killed by an assault weapon in Washington State each year. That's not a problem. And you people in Washington need to wake up and realize what this government is doing. Quit listening to the propaganda about how scary and evil firearms are. Firearms are only evil and scary in the hands of evil and scary people. Okay? Firearms are not the problem. Mankind has been killing each other since the beginning of our existence on this planet. Whether it be rocks, sticks, spears, arrows, whatever weapon throughout history, people have killed people and people will always kill people. You take guns away, right? People are still going to kill people. It has nothing to do with the implement that's used. It has to do with, my phone heard me and started talking. It has nothing to do with the weapon. It has to do with people, and it has to do with violence. The violence of people and the lack of punishment. So, again, weapons change. You look at a country like England. They banned all firearms years ago. Now they have a problem with people are still dying. They're just being killed with knives instead of firearms. The violence hasn't changed. Murder hasn't changed. Killing hasn't changed. Just the implement they use has changed, right? They can't get firearms anymore, so they use knives. Now guess what? England is banning knives, right? What are they going to do next? People are going to start killing each other with what? With forks, whatever. Kill each other with rocks. They're going to ban that too. You can't fix the violence problem by banning the implement. You fix the violence problem by punishing the violent people, by getting them off the street. We have people in the United States that have been arrested 70 times for many violent offenses. They're still walking on the street, still committing violence. That's the problem. We got these weak judges, these weak prosecutors who continually let these people out or refuse to press charges on them. And every time these people commit crimes, they get more violent because they got away with what they did last time. So next time they're going to up the ante, and they're going to continue to get more violent until they start killing people. I mean, that's just what happens, right? If you don't punish people for being violent, for breaking the law, then what's to stop them from going out and continuing and escalating? Absolutely nothing. If you're worried about the gun violence in this country, if you're worried about violence, period, you need to elect people who are going to enforce laws, who are going to prosecute, and who are going to punish people who act out in a violent manner. That's how you fix our violence problem. It's not by banning implements. The implement doesn't matter. It's the people that need to be dealt with. They need to be locked up. They need to go away. Our laws need to be enforced. We don't need to disarm the victims. We need to put the perpetrators in jail. That's how you cure the violence problem. So, that's all I have on that subject. I know this has been a long video, but these are a couple hot button issues for me, and I get a little worked up. And I did much better in my first take. I didn't cuss as much, but anyways. Last time I forgot to give you a little prepping tip, so this one is going to be a out of order of what I was going to do, but it's timely for what's going on. Unfortunately, this video will be out after it would have been helpful, but hopefully it'll help you prepare for next time. As you know, currently here in Washington State, we are experiencing floods all over the place. We're talking 100-year floods. Some places are talking 500-year flood. The floods are bad. The weather's been terrible. A lot of people are having to evacuate, okay? And a lot of people are waiting too long. A lot of people getting trapped. So here's some tips for how to be prepared for just such a scenario. Okay, number one, you should always have some type of a go bag handy. A go bag is something that has things that you will need to survive for, a few days at least away from your home, right? Food, water, change of clothes, stuff like that. Important things you need, important documents you need. You need to have that stuff in a go bag so that if you have to leave your home, you at least have some ability to take care of yourself, to feed yourself, to clothe yourself, give yourself some water. If you have to leave your house in a hurry, it's just something you can grab and go out the door. The second tip I'm going to give you on this type of situation, we have people that are being evacuated today out of Ording. A whole bunch of people, they're being told, you must evacuate now, right? So they got to go. One big issue people have is, number one, when they're told they have to evacuate, they have no idea where they're going to go. And even if they do have an idea of where they're going to go, they have no idea how they're going to get there. Most people, when they go someplace, they know one route, maybe two routes to get there. When you're dealing with a situation like this, where you have flooding and everything else, you have to know multiple ways of how to get someplace. Number one, you have to know where you're going to go, where's going to be safe, right? You have a relative that lives up on a hill out of the flood zone. You want to go there, right? But how do you get there? Every time you go see that friend or relative, you always drive the same way because we're creatures of habit. What you need to do is you have to plan ahead and set up a plan of how you're going to get from your house to that place that you're going to for safety. You have to have multiple routes to get there because in a situation like this, we have streets that are flooded. We have landslides that are blocking roads. My phone vibrating and fell off the thing. Sorry. There's all kinds of things that can happen. It could be wrecks because of the weather, right? You have to, roads will be closed for various reasons. You have to know multiple routes on how to get there. Because like I said, most people know one or two ways how to get someplace, and after that, if those places where routes are blocked, they don't know how to get there. So, know multiple routes to your place of safety you're trying to get to before you leave, before the event happens. You should have this planned out. You should know, okay, if this happens, how am I going to get there? I know these 4 ways of how to get there, right? If this bridge is closed, if there's a landslide on this hill that I have to drive, right? I know a way around that. Know your ways around it, how to get there, right? And that's our tip for today, is have a bag ready to go and have your routes planned out, multiple routes. And that way, if you're faced with a situation like a lot of people are being faced with today, that you can safely get out of your house with what you need to be able to take care of yourself should you not be able to make it to where you're going. And you have multiple ways to get to where you're going. And that's our prepping tip for today. And as usual, remind you that if you want to know more about who we are, go to our website, washington3percent.org. That's WA3percent.org. And while you're there, you can also, find out about us, what we stand for, what we believe in, what we do. And you can also go to our charity, which is Boots on the Home Ground. It's a veterans charity, and nobody gets paid. Every penny we get goes to help veterans in need and people in our community who are struggling through situations like happening today. That's all I got for today. Good night. We'll see you next time on Behind the Wire.